The Hulk, when life quietly asks you to change. Have you ever noticed something appearing in your life over and over again, so often that eventually it stops feeling accidental? Not dramatic, not magical, just persistent. A song, a number, a dream, an animal. For me, it was hawks. Not once, not twice, constantly. On fence posts, circling highways, watching from dead tree limbs like they had arrived before I did. And the strange part wasn't seeing them. The strange part was when they appeared. Every major shift, every crossroads, every season where my life was quietly outgrowing itself, there they were. And I don't think this episode is really about a bird, and I'm not here to preach doctrine or tell you what to believe. I'm simply asking, what if certain things enter our awareness repeatedly because we are finally ready to notice them? Hawks are among the most precise hunters in the natural world, built almost entirely for vision, speed, and elevation. Their bodies are lightweight but powerful, feathered for lift. Their hooked beaks are designed for tearing. Their curved talons lock onto prey with crushing force. Some species can dive at astonishing speeds, approaching 150 miles per hour. But speed is not their greatest advantage. Vision is. A hawk sees with extraordinary clarity, detecting movement from incredible distances, tracking details the human eye completely misses. Some can even perceive ultraviolet traces invisible to us, following paths hidden in plain sight. Everything about the hawk is designed for awareness. Large, forward-facing eyes, vision that can stare directly into harsh light, wings engineered for precision, for movement through changing air currents. Some hawks soar effortlessly above open land, as if suspended between the earth and sky. Others are built for sudden acceleration, sharp turns, and impossible agility through narrow spaces like dense forests. Different environments, different wings, same purpose. Awareness, seeing clearly, moving decisively, rising when necessary. And maybe that's why hawks have fascinated humans for thousands of years. Ancient cultures often viewed them as messengers, not because they were magical, because they seemed to see what humans missed, living embodiments of perspective. The Egyptians associated hawk gods with elevated awareness and divine vision. Many native traditions saw hawks as symbols of intuition, perspective, and timing, not fortune-telling. Observation sharpened into instinct. Have you ever had a hawk appear at exactly the moment you were struggling with a decision? Or notice one circling silently above you just as life was changing? Across cultures and centuries, humans have looked at hawks not merely as birds of prey, but as messengers and wondered why. Not because hawks are gentle. They are apex aerial predators, focused, precise. Eyesight is 8 times stronger than humans. They are unwilling to waste energy. And perhaps that is exactly why they affect people so deeply, because hawks are not symbols of comfort. They are symbols of clarity. They ask, what are you failing to see? Are you too close to the problem? Have you lost perspective? Are you reacting instead of observing? Several years ago around Christmas, I was driving home on the main thoroughfare of a relatively small community in South Carolina when something near the edge of a turn lane caught my attention. At first, I honestly thought it was a tree ornament someone had dropped onto the road. But as I slowed down and looked closer, it moved its head and looked at me. Hawk. Stunned, injured, barely moving. Immediately pulled over, turning my car diagonally across the turn lane to stop some of the oncoming traffic and approaching cars behind to see something was wrong. I exited my car, quickly removed my bright red jacket to try and direct traffic away from me and the Hawk. Everyone slowed, not understanding why, because the Hawk was dazed. It was vulnerable to being hit. As I wondered how I was going to catch the Hawk, a car pulled suddenly behind me, but leaving a distance between her car, the Hawk, and mine, flasher zone. She suddenly jumped out of the car and loudly said, "Don't approach the bird. Let me do it." She made a phone call. As luck would have it, she called her daughter, who worked with a local organization called Carolina Raptors. The irony to have her mother just happening to pull behind me, and ironically, her daughter lived in a complex just down the street from this intersection. I offered my coat, but she felt hers would be more malleable. I called the police and asked if the officer I'd just seen 4 miles away could be contacted to help manage traffic so this rescue could take place safely. He arrived within 4 minutes. The mom approached from behind the Hawk, her jacket held low. She folded him into it, asked me to open her car door, said her daughter was on the way, and she was driving the Hawk to her daughter's place. She assured me she could drive there with the Hawk wrapped in her lap. The police were happy. This all happened so fast. I scribbled my name and phone number and put it inside her car. The policeman smiled and said, "Good job." I watched the mom drive the Hawk across the road. I moved my car. There was relief. And the entire drive home, I felt strangely emotional. Not because I believed the Hawk was magical, but because something about the moment felt deeply symbolic. Life had paused long enough for me to pay attention. 2 weeks later, the daughter called and said the Hawk was fine, simply stunned by being clipped by a vehicle. She thanked me and told me the Hawk had been released. And even though I was not there to watch it return to the sky, I still think about it every time another Hawk appears. 3 days after the release, there was a hawk feather left at my wildlife sanctuary. I knew immediately it was a gift, a thank you. So simple a recognition, just there. Sometimes meaning doesn't arrive dramatically. Sometimes it arrives quietly and waits to see if you notice. I didn't hear a voice, not because I thought it was supernatural, but because the experience changed something in me. Sometimes awakening doesn't arrive dramatically. Sometimes it appears quietly, through repetition, through patterns, through moments that interrupt routine just long enough to make us stop and look up. Real-life transformation rarely begins with certainty. It begins with awareness, a quiet inner knowing that where we are can no longer hold who we are becoming. And maybe that's what the Hawk represents most powerfully, not superstition, awareness, perspective, timing. Something improbable unfolded that stayed with me emotionally. The mother of a raptor rehabilitator randomly arriving behind me, transforming the scene from a simple rescue into one of those moments that feels orchestrated by life itself. I'm not telling you every Hawk is a supernatural sign, but I am saying humans consistently attach meaning to moments that stop us in our tracks. It felt less like being given a message and more like being invited to pay attention. Sometimes awakening doesn't arrive dramatically. Sometimes it appears quietly, through repetition, through patterns, through moments that interrupt routine just long enough to make us stop and look up. Real-life transformation rarely begins with certainty. It begins with awareness, a quiet inner knowing that where we are can no longer hold who we are becoming. And maybe that's what the Hawk represents most powerfully, not superstition, but again, awareness, perspective, timing, the realization that life often begins signaling us long before we are emotionally ready to recognize it. Because humans are strange creatures, we ignore exhaustion, delay healings, stay in environments that suffocate us, remain loyal to older versions of ourselves long after growth is asking us to move. But hawks do not hesitate. They rise when the current changes. They conserve energy, observe carefully, wait for clarity before action. And maybe that's the deeper lesson. Not that hawks are signs, but they mirror something inside us already trying to awaken. The truth about hawks: people admire them from a distance. They observe what they do. Hawks hunt. They are apex aerial predators, fearless, focused, and unwilling to survive by staying grounded. Across cultures and centuries, people looked at hawks and sensed something beyond instinct: guidance, awareness, a higher vantage point. They are not soft symbols. And maybe that's part of the point, because transformation is beautiful in poetry, but uncomfortable in real life. We love the idea of rising higher. We just don't love what higher vision asks us to leave behind. Perhaps that is why hawk energy enters people's awareness during periods of change. Not when life is ending, but when life is demanding elevation. The message is simple, but life-altering. It is time to move forward, because the version of you emerging now cannot remain inside spaces built for who you used to be. Maybe there is something in your own life right now appearing repeatedly, a feeling, a restlessness, a pull toward change, not demanding attention loudly, just asking to be seen. And perhaps the hawk reminds us that elevation often begins internally before it ever becomes visible externally. The hawk does not force you to change. It simply reminds you that staying low is no longer possible. Like the butterfly, the hawk carries a difficult truth. Sometimes staying where you are will suffocate the very wings life is trying to give you. Remaining loyal to outdated versions of yourself can delay the elevation waiting on the other side of your courage. Maybe you've outgrown who you are. Sometimes hawks appear during seasons when your life can no longer contain who you're becoming. Not when everything's falling apart, but when everything is about to expand. Hawks do what many of us are being asked to do internally: rise above confusion. Observe carefully. Stop reacting to every movement below. Trust timing. Wait for clarity before acting. Hawks mirror human evolution beautifully. People change shape emotionally and spiritually, depending on what survival requires. So maybe the hawk isn't showing you what to think. Maybe it's reflecting what your own spirit already knows. And if you've been feeling lately that freedom, movement, or becoming something larger than your current surroundings is pulling at you, you may want to join me for the next episode. Because some people are not entering a calm season. They are entering a combustion season. A restlessness, a pull, a knowing, a crossroad. We experience it long before we name it. And maybe that's all awareness really is: recognizing what was already there. A quiet inner knowing that where we are can no longer hold who we are becoming. Watch, wait, and trust the winds. The hawk does not force you to change. It simply reminds you that staying low is no longer possible. And next time, we explore the fire horse, because there comes a moment when vision must become movement. In Chinese astrology, the fire horse appears only once every 60 years, a rare cycle associated with fierce momentum, independence, passion, courage, and transformation through action. This has been Animal Sacred Wisdom. I'm Carol Butler. Time is precious. Thank you for sharing yours with me. Hope you'll follow me and share with others. And until next time, listen, reflect, connect.